Welcome to the Financial Coaches Podcast, where we talk about how to build your practice from startup to scale up while being the kind of coach your clients crave. Finally, a podcast for financial coaches. Here are your hosts, Maria Casillas and Cody Sizemore.
Well, hello and welcome back to the Financial Coaches Podcast. My name is Cody Sizemore and I'm joined here by my lovely co-host, Maria Casillas. And we're going to be we're going to be doing a throwback today. And when I say throwback, I think that we've done like over 200 episodes now. I don't believe that we've talked about this since our very first episode. So,
Wow.
Throwback to the throwbacks kind of thing. So I'm excited to get into all this, this really good conversation we're going to have today. But what I will say is just a few things before we get started. Number one, if this is your first time checking us out, hey, thanks for checking us out. And the good news is that think of this like a bookmark, to where it's like, today we have the end of the book, and then we also have the beginning of the book at the beginning of the show, and there's all these good things in between, right? Make sure you get the good value from in between. And when I say end of the book today, this is not the end of the show. This is not the last episode, but up until this point, it definitely is. Make sure you go back and listen if you got some good value from today. And if you've been someone who's listened to us like every single week since you found us, we want to give you guys a special shout out because you guys are what we will call our every weekers. And we really do appreciate you guys more than you actually realize, because you're the ones who keep the show going. You're the ones who've shown the love. You've reached out to us. You've sent us emails, text messages, Facebook messages. And you've, number one, just said thank you, which is awesome to hear. But also number two, you've actually given us quite a bit of like different ideas of topics to talk about on the show and stuff like that. So we really do appreciate you if you are an every weeker. And then the last thing I'll say is, if you want to connect with us, whether it be, to discuss different ideas within your practice, whether it be to get a second opinion on something that you're trying to work up, or if it's something to where you're saying, hey, I want to hear about this on the show. A really good way to do that is to connect with us through our Facebook group, which is free to join. And it's called The Financial Coaches Community by New Money Habits on Facebook. So make sure you join that. It's free to join, have some fun, introduce yourselves, and all that good stuff. So with that being said, Maria,
Yes,
how you
sir.
feeling today?
I'm doing all right. Thank you. Trying to kind of get back into the swing of things. My husband and I just got to go on a nice vacation, which was wonderful.
Okay.
We didn't have to take our kids, which I love taking my kids on vacation, but sometimes it's nice to, just get away on your own. But I tell you what, man, like these kids, they were so well behaved when we were gone, that they took the first few days to kind of get their oats back. And so it's been a rough few days here at home, but we're kind of getting back into the swing of things and looking forward to a little bit more consistency back in our lives.
Kids will do that. They'll keep you on your toes.
Man, will
Yeah.
they? Yeah. But I'm happy to be back here with you and having a discussion about this. And I'm actually really kind of intrigued and excited to do this little bit of a throwback. I'm interested because I know you said that it's something we haven't talked about since the beginning, but I'm willing to bet that it will be a different show than it was in the beginning. Even just the topic at hand, I think it's going to be one that has morphed over the last couple of years, probably for both of us. So I'm a little curious to see where it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. So we'll jump right into it. Sorry, my cat is freaking out right now. Cats aside, we'll jump into it. And really what we want to talk about today is why we coach, right? And I think that like what we're going to do is we're going to just share like our own individual stories of like, where we were before and what kind of got us into this whole thing and why we do it and all that good stuff. But I want to make sure this is very clear from the get-go. This is not just, story time to just like, pick your feet up and all that kinds of stuff. That's not why we're doing this today. The reason that I wanted to have this conversation is because I think that it's really important to communicate why you're coaching, to yourself, to your clients, and even to the people who are watching you as well. Because when you do that, you can make sure that you're aligned with that through the way that you coach for your clients, and that's like the main thing is the main thing. Like, well, this is why I'm doing it, and I want to make sure that that reflects in how I coach, kind of thing.
Mhm. Mhm.
But then also beyond that too, it's also really important to communicate your journey, your story and why you do this, even in your marketing, whether it be online via social media, whether it be just talking to someone in the grocery store line, like whatever it might be, sharing that I feel really allows people to know you, like you, and trust you, which is a huge thing, especially with this topic that we coach people on, which would be money. It's a very sensitive, very personal topic. So just being able to share that, I feel it allows people to feel more comfortable with you. And
Mhm.
it also allows the right people to find you because you're not going to be the right coach for everyone. It really does matter that you find the right people and that the right people find you as well. So
Yeah.
that's why I wanted to talk about it today.
Cool.
Does
And
that
I'm
make
just
sense?
going to add one more caveat to that, if I may.
Hmm.
I think it also helps us as coaches stay aligned and stay intentional with what we do, what projects we're willing to take on, what clients we're willing to take on, if we are able to go back to what is the whole reason I'm doing this in the first place. And so I think that's just one more reason why it's important to kind of keep that front of mind.
Hmm. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And that kind of goes along the lines of like, making sure that we're showing up for our clients in the right way kind of
Yeah.
thing,
Yep.
so but yeah, yeah, I mean, it's huge. So, I'm gonna put you on the spot, Maria.
Oh, I love that.
Let's hear about your journey that kind of led you into this space. And then, also, a big reason as to why you're still doing it as well, or even why you started in the first place.
Yeah. Well, kick up your feet. It's story time. I'm kidding. I will keep it relatively short. I think for myself, many like many other financial coaches, the journey started initially, at least in the financial world, with our own struggle. And
Mhm,
I like to say that it started with the struggle, but it actually my calling, if you will, became obvious long before that. So I mean, from the time I was like 12 years old, I always knew that I wanted to help people, wanted to not just help people, but help them learn to help themselves and really make a difference in their own lives. And it got to the point when I was like 18 that I really started connecting with individuals who had been addicted to substances and were in the process of recovery. And for some reason, I was much older than my age, if that makes any sense. Like I was able to connect with
mhm,
people on a way that many kids my age were not able to do so. So I kind of took that. I remember writing poetry about it, journaling about it. Like it was a thing when I was young. And then I went through college and I went through grad school and ultimately became a counselor for mostly for people who are addicted to substances and in recovery, but counseling more in general. And then after I became a mom and I mean, I became a wife and then a mom, and then we got into life, right? And life happened to us and we made some bad decisions and we got ourselves into a bit of a mess. And we decided that it was enough was enough. And so we started to, clean up our mess. When people saw what we were doing, they started asking us, "Hey, just out of curiosity, could you help with this?" And I was willing to help a little bit, but when I first said, I'm just gonna try this." I've done business before because I was always in like a network marketing type of business. Like, I'm gonna just try this. I'm gonna hang a shingle and just see what happens. But what happened for me, Cody, and I know I've shared this before, is that I just kind of followed suit. Like I did what I saw other people, other financial coaches doing. I ascribed to the Dave Ramsey model, just
mhm,
for full transparency. And I just kind of did things the way that he did things, and I coached people the way I thought that needed to happen. In fact, that's the model that got us out of the trouble. So it just made sense to do that. But with all of that being said, there was always something in the back of my mind that said, there's something more to this. I kind of felt like I'm going to use the word just, and it sounds pejorative, and I don't mean it that way, but I felt like I was just a budget coach in that moment. And
sure,
I knew that there was something way more. Uh, more transformative that I was capable of doing with people. And I just kind of went back to that 12-year-old to 18-year-old kid and said, for all these years, you wanted to do something that was planted inside of me. That wasn't something that I came up with. Why don't you go back to that? Just kind of dig and see. And so that's what I did. I used to call it my existential crisis, but that doesn't even make any sense because it wasn't about being existing. But I definitely had a crisis of, identity maybe where like who am I really and who do I want to be and how do I want to show up for people? And so that's kind of how that journey began and how it's continued over the last 10 years since I started.
Yeah. Well, what I appreciate about your story is that you got yourself out of a situation uh in a certain way. And I mean, let's just call it out for what it is. Like you went the Ramsey route, right?
Mhm, mhm,
Um and while that worked for you in the sense that it got you got yourself out of that situation, um, you also recognize that there were certain things about that didn't feel right. They weren't totally aligned with you, and they left you feel in a certain way. And then as you stepped into the coaching, you went that route initially, but then also just saw the patterns of like, well, there's something missing here,
mhm,
right? um, which I think is huge. Like, just number one, just to be self aware enough to do that. But then also, number two is just like not being so stuck in one certain way. I think that's really, really great. I think that that's what made you such a good coach is that like you understood, like, hey, we say this phrase all the time in the show personal finance is personal, right? And maybe it's more than just all about the numbers.
mhm,
Maybe, just maybe, there's
mhm,
something behind those numbers that might be causing those things to happen. And then you made that adjustment, right? So I love that. And I also think that like it's just cool that you have that experience, not only of getting yourself, out of that situation that you were in, but then also that you had the situation of like it was almost like a reawakening in certain
mhm,
senses,
mhm.
to take things to the next level, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's great.
Cool. And yeah, I mean, it has been there's been a journey for sure and lots of different changes and how many clients I want to take on and what does that look like. And then obviously I didn't just stay on my own. I also joined forces with Mike and we formed New Money Habits. And I mean, there's been all of these different choices and changes along the way. But they've all anchored back to what it is that I'm doing in the first place. So if I may, I'll just share with you. I know you haven't asked yet, but I'll share with you something that I wrote a long time ago when I recognized, like, why am I doing this in the first place? And I really started to recognize that I wanted to have a why that was a little bit more broad and then
Hmm.
one that was a little bit more narrow. And so I'll share both if I can. The more broad one is to become that which God created me to be and to live into the purpose for which He created me. And that is something that I look at every single day and I ask myself, is this thing that I'm working on today going to do that? Is that who I'm supposed to be? Is it who I was created to be? And that's what I meant when I said like I went back to that whole 12-year-old thing. Like some of that stuff, yes, you're figuring out who you are at that age, but I really believe that that desire to be more transformative with people and for people was just it was placed in me. It wasn't something that I just went out and found. And so that's one of the things that I want to do. And I also know that I was created to be a mother. And in this time of my life, I have to ask myself, what are the things that I'm choosing to do? Am I putting that am I allowing that calling to be seen? Or am I snuffing that out by, trying to hustle on something else, right? So there's that more broad why for me. But when it came to um, why I coach individuals and
Hmm.
families and financial coaching in general, it really came down to I just want to help people breathe life and meaning back into their personal finances. Like it's one of those things where if you if you can do numbers and I did, like I told you, when my husband and I we got out of a mess, and I'm using air quotes for those of you who are not watching, but there was no fulfillment. Like the that whole idea of freedom, that we're given. Oh, you've got this financial freedom, and as long as you're free from debt, you're free. And I remember, like, I held on to that like it was full truth. And we worked hard. We got to, I think we had like $110,000 turnaround or something like that on a meager on a meager salary in just a few years. So it was great. It was an accomplishment, but it was the accomplishment that I was after. And once that accomplishment was taken care of, that was it. Like, it was snuffed out. Like, there wasn't any sense of actually being excited and having that meaning in there anymore. And that became very lackluster for both my husband and myself. And I think that's kind of where that recognition came from, was like, okay, there's got to be something more than just this goal. Because it wasn't like we didn't have the discipline, because we did. It wasn't like we didn't have the hustle, because we did. It wasn't even that we weren't willing to stick it out, consistently until the end, because we did. But there was not a meaning behind it. If we were giving up things that we really maybe shouldn't have given up, and we were taking on things that maybe we shouldn't have taken on, because we were focused on this particular goal rather than the overall purpose of what we were doing.
Hmm. That's a really big point that you make, because I even tell people that, like, if you go after a goal simply for the sake of accomplishing the goal,
Hmm.
there's usually two outcomes that are going to happen, and you actually brought a third outcome
Oh, good.
up.
I love adding to the
Which,
stuff.
yeah, yeah. So the two outcomes that I tell people is that, like, they're gonna get really motivated, really inspired to do something, and they'll probably do well with it for 2 to 4, maybe 5, 6 months. Who knows, right? Like, but
Hmm.
shorter period of time. Um, and then the moment that, like, something unexpected happens, job loss, car breakdown, furnace goes out, whatever, you kind of throw your hands up and you're just like, oh, well, who was I kidding? Because this happens every time that I try and do this. And I don't even want to look at this anymore. I don't want to deal with it anymore. I'm just going to go back to what I was doing before. I'll get back to this later. But right now, I just can't. I just can't. And that's usually one outcome that might
Hmm.
happen. And then the other outcome is that, like, again, they get really motivated, they get really inspired, they do well with it for 2 to 6 months, and then nothing happens, in the sense that, like, everything's good with the job, everything's good with the car, but then it just becomes, like, boring,
Hmm.
becomes real and very lackluster, and slowly but surely, like, those old habits and old mindsets start to creep in, and then the old results do as well, until you kind of look up one day, you look at yourself in the mirror and you go, what happened? Like, everything was going really well, and then it just kind of, like, fizzled out,
Hmm.
you know? Um, so, those types of things, when you're just, like, approaching something to simply just accomplish it, I found that happens to a lot of people, but sometimes they they see it through. Like, like, they actually get through that finish line, but then once you cross it, it's kind of like, okay, well, that's done. Now what?
Hmm.
Right? Like,
Yep.
you almost kinda make it like your identity in
Hmm.
a way when you're in
Hmm.
that process. You're just so focused on it that once you get it done, you kind of have, like, this, like, sense of lost purpose. It's like, "Well,
Hmm.
what do I do now?" Right?
Yep.
So, I really like that, and obviously that ties into why you do this, because you wanna make sure that when people are trying to get themselves out of debt or accomplish any sort of financial goal, that they don't do it and then also feel that feeling that you
Yeah.
felt.
Yeah.
So, it's good.
Absolutely.
I like that.
So what about you? But
Awesome. My story,
yeah,
it's very different,
that's
as
good.
you could imagine.
I'm sure our listeners would hit stop if we have to repeat the same story over
Yeah,
again.
yeah, yeah. No, my story is actually really different because, like, I didn't come from any space that's even remotely close to this at
Hmm.
all. Like, I came from the music industry. Um, so my story basically started because I was in a touring band for like 7 or 8 years, and I was like the main songwriter in that band, and things were going really well. Like, we were selling out our venues in our hometown every time that we played. We were touring all across the country. I mean, like, from like New York to Florida to LA to Seattle and everywhere in between, kind of thing. Um, and then we were also recording with like a multi-platinum record producer in New York. Like things were good.
Hmm.
Um, and I loved that period of my life. Loved it. It, like, can't even tell you how many core memories I have and just like awesome relationships I have through that period of my life. Um, But the one struggle through all of it was that while, on the front end, the music was doing well, like we were going in the right direction. Um, for me personally, on my back end, uh, my finances were a mess. Like I had a bunch of debt, nothing in savings, and it was very much so like that starving artist
Uh-huh.
kind of thing that you hear all the time.
Yep. You
Like
lived
that
it.
was me, like, and and I actually like embraced that. Like I wore it like almost like a
Of
what's
honor.
badge of honor. Yes, thank you.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah, badge of honor. And that that basically went that way for years until eventually it just kind of caught up to me. And I remember that there was one time like we were driving through the night and I think we were in Oklahoma. Um, just driving throughout the night, and we stopped at a gas station at like 3 in the morning to get fueled up and to have a small little break and get a snack and all that kinds of stuff, right? And I went to that gas station and I hopped out of the van because I lived in a van for about 7 months out of the year, um, with 5 other people. Um,
I'm
so
sure that smelled amazing.
yeah, yeah. Hopped out of that van and I was like, man, I'm really hungry. So I pulled out my wallet and saw that there was nothing in it, like not even $1. And I was like, all good. I'll pull up my card. And I pulled up my bank account and I saw that I had $1.03 in my bank account. And here I was like, 1,500 miles from home at 3 in the morning with $1.03 to my name kind of thing. And in that moment, I kind of felt like, those really bright fluorescent lights uh, at those gas stations.
Uh-huh.
I could like feel them and hear them intensify
Yeah.
like all around me. And I felt like everyone was kind of like looking at me in that moment too. So I like had to get away from that situation and I went into our trailer and just like shut the door and it kind of broke down, like head and face, or I'm sorry, heads and hands kind of thing. And just had this moment with myself where I'm just like, what am I doing? You know, like I'm 24, 25 years old and this is what I'm doing. Like, how could I let this get to this place? Like all
Mhm.
this kind of stuff, right?
Mhm.
Um, and that really, really hit me hard. And long story short, it just became unsustainable for me. So unfortunately, after we got back from that run, and after some long and hard thinking, and discussions, I ultimately made the decision that I just couldn't keep doing this because it was not just affecting my finances, but it was also affecting like my mental health. It was affecting my relationships because of that. Even physically, like it was just affecting me, right?
Mhm.
Um, so I had to take that step back to basically just let my dream die,
Mm.
essentially. Um, so in other words, money was the thing that killed my dream. And when that happened, I went on a revenge tour against money. I kind of took the mindset of like, I am never, ever, ever going to allow money to dictate my life ever again, ever. And that's probably what like sparked why I work so hard now is because I'm just like, I'm not letting this happen again. And I went on this revenge tour about it. And I was just like, I'm going to learn everything about it that I can, everything about it. And I'm going to apply what I learn and I'm going to get myself out of this situation. And I'm never, ever going to look back. And that's what I did. So I started doing a bunch of research. Ramsey was one of the guys that I got connected with as well. And, just started learning, listening to his podcast, along with a couple other guys as well. And just started reading and reading and listening and listening and watching and watching. Um, until eventually I got myself into a good place to where then my friends noticed and they said, hey, how did you do that? And then I started helping my friends. And then my friends' friends started noticing and then they started asking questions. And one thing led to another to the point where I was just like, well, I might as well just help people with this. Right. So that's my story overall, as far as like how I got here. But the reason why that I do what I do is what I said before, which is that like my dream and my life really did like die
Mhm.
because of this, right?
Mhm.
And I don't want anyone to feel like they are given God-given gifts and that they can't allow those things to come to fruition the way they really could because of money,
Mhm.
right? Or maybe even like they don't go after it at all because they're unconfident about their abilities to do it because of their financial situation. And it could be something even as simple as like starting a family. I
Mhm.
talk to so many people who are like, we really, really want kids, but we don't know if we can because of our money situation. I'm just like, that sucks,
Mhm.
So that's the big why as to like why I coach. And that's how I kind of like show up for my clients as well, is like, I don't want people to be held back for
Yeah.
who they are, kind of
I
thing.
think, yes, those stories are very different. Just the way that they kind of began.
Hmm.
But there are two similarities, two parallels that I see. And one of them is more of just like a little bit of a jab. Isn't it funny that our friends and our family, they see what we've done and then they come and ask for that.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's one of those things where I want to point out that we did so much work, right? We did so much research. That you said, listen, listen, listen. I read. Same's easier. Like it
Hmm.
was all of that. We did all of that work. And it's not that other people aren't willing to do some work, because they are. If they're calling us and they're asking us, how did we do that? Chances are they're actually willing to do some work. But it is one of those ideas that some individuals need a coach to help with that.
Yeah.
And some just did that sort of quote unquote on their own. And it doesn't mean that, I mean, I have coaches in other areas of my life. I just didn't use one in that area of my life. I was just more like head down and we're going to figure this out. Similar to what you were like. And so that's just a little bit of a reminder for our listeners that people are watching you, they are seeing what you're doing, and they are curious. Some of them might already say, oh, they did something, I'm going to ask what they did, and I'm just going to go on my own and do it. Some of them might need more of that handheld holding. So just a little reminder of that. But the beautiful parallel that I saw between like our whys is that what you said is, I didn't want my dream. I mean, my dream died, and I don't want that to be the case for my clients or my future clients. And mine was, I want to help breathe life back into that. And so I just think it is so neat that even though we came from very different places, there's this recognition of like a lifeblood, and that money touches everything, and it can either help to fuel our lives and our dreams, or it can absolutely kill it. So I just wanted to share that parallel, as I didn't know that you were going to say that, or we didn't plan any of this ahead. And it was just one of the observations that I had as you were talking.
Yeah. That is a really good observation. And while it's different statements, it basically means the same thing, right?
Yeah.
I do want to be very clear on something though, before we wrap everything up. While what caused me to be a coach was a result of my dream dying because of money, what I now recognize is that this was the ultimate dream all along,
Hmm.
right? And in that moment, like when I was playing music, I never ever thought that anything would take music's place in the amount of like passion that I have for it, interest that I have for it. Um, Nothing. Not even close. I was like, it's going to be impossible for anything to even touch this. And now that I've been, doing this, like it's a complete 180. Like this is it. So sometimes like having those really, really hard moments, when you're in that moment, like it sucks, but it can oftentimes be the breath of new life that you really need,
Sure.
to actually bring you towards like your actual dream, or maybe the thing that you're actually called to do,
Yeah,
kind of thing,
that's right.
So
Live into the purpose for which you were created.
yeah,
Yeah. And
there
there's
you go.
another pill. I love it. That is really great. Hey, before we wrap stuff up, could you just share, because maybe our listeners will go back and listen to episode 1, but for those who won't, could you just share the SpaghettiOs story real quick, where you had
Oh
just humor me? It's 30 seconds. It just
yeah.
made me.
So it wasn't SpaghettiOs; it was
Oh, I think it
ravioli.
was. Oh, ravioli. Okay, but it was made by SpaghettiOs, right, or something? Oh, Chef
Chef
Boyardee.
Boyardee.
Right,
Yeah,
ravioli. That's what.
yeah. So it's not even like a story because I actually did this like several times, but uh, it was struggle bus. So
Yep.
back then, those cans of ravioli, or whatever Chef Boyardee thing I wanted, like they were like 79 cents a piece, 89 cents a piece. So I
Even
was
with tax, you could get it for less than $1.03.
yeah. I was like, well, heck yeah, that's what I'm going to get. And oftentimes I would just open up that can and just eat it cold with like a plastic fork kind of thing. And I definitely got used to that. Like it was good, like I didn't mind it. But in the opportunities that we had in particular in the American Southwest,
Which is
Arizona.
where I live. For those of you who
Yes.
don't know, I'm in Arizona. So
Arizona being one of them.
Yep.
I actually always liked playing in those states because it was an actually like just like hotter kind of place, right?
it's an oven. You can say it's an oven. It's okay.
Yeah, it's an oven. Sure. So one little like tour hack that I would do is I would take that can of ravioli out of our trailer and I would just pop it into the windshield or into the like the dash kind of thing and just leave it there for like 30 to 45 minutes and let that sun just cook it up, right? And then I'd open up that ravioli and it was so warm, it was so nice, and it was great. So that's Maria's favorite story about my stories of my time in Arizona. So
Yep, it sure is. So I really appreciate you sharing that. And just so you all know, like when you got to do something, you got to do it, and
Gotta do it.
we did it. So we learn how to live within whatever means we have. And when you've got $1.03, Chef Boyardee ravioli, it is. So
that's right. When you got $1.03, Chef Boyardee. Boom.
All right. Well, on that note, so we don't get any more punchy on y'all. Thanks so much for tuning in this week. We look forward to seeing you next week for another episode of the Financial Coaches Podcast. See you then.
Thank you for listening to the Financial Coaches Podcast, brought to you by New Money Habits and Sizemore Financial Coaching. Submit your questions to our hosts by emailing podcast@newmoneyhabits.com. Be sure to subscribe to be notified of future episodes and join our growing group of like-minded coaches on Facebook. And until next time, happy coaching.